There was a great, you and I like to laugh a lot, there's a great Saturday Night Live sketch about don't spend money that you don't have.
Right.
Now, that can sound limiting, though, as we go into retirement. I never like the concept of giving somebody a budget and saying you can't spend over this. I think I like how you lean into the phrase an income spending plan.
Yes.
Let's put together a spending plan. So let's talk about, first of all, sometimes it's hard for folks to actually start spending that money, even though you've said you've got more than enough at the beginning of retirement, right?
Well, it goes both ways, Spike. You know, a lot of times we'll see people limit themselves. And part of this, understand the generational psychology. If you were raised by World War II generation parents or Depression era parents, you're baked in of not spending money.
My folks, you know, because my mom and dad, they went through it with their parents, and just even when things were good, they were cautious about what they were spending. Now, we did take family vacations, have wonderful holidays and all that stuff, but it's built in. It's a behavioral thing.
And I'll give you a perfect example. I had a client, she was retired, living on her Social Security check, which wasn't a lot. And at the end of the day, she had a couple $1 million invested with us. And I was over at her house in the middle of summer. It's 95 degrees in her house. I'm not kidding. And I said to her, I said, you know, aren't you hot? She's like, well, it's a little warm, but I got the windows open and the air's moving through. I'm like, why don't you turn on the air conditioner? She said, well, honey, I can't afford that. Living on Social Security, $2 million in the bank, but the mindset is I can't afford it. I could run out of money still, even at that age. And so it's really difficult to break out of that. And we talk about giving people permission. You know, that's the beauty of having a written plan in the first place. If you can see the plan and it's written out and you can see the income flow and then you can see that extra bucket that we talk about, it's extra. Yeah. That's the place that we can go to. So when you know, one of the mistakes that we see a lot of times is when everybody has all their money kind of in one bucket and they just kind of, they're taking that systematic withdrawal. It's difficult to separate that. When we do our planning, we purposely have the income bucket so we know how much is coming from income. Once we get that figured out, everything else is in that extra bucket. So if I want to take a cruise or I want to take a trip or I want to do something special for the grandkids, I know that I have that extra bucket that's not going to mess up my day-to-day.
But the retirement blueprint is actually mapping that out, printing that out, letting people know. I also want to ask you then about those projections.
Right.
Typically, how long do you take out the retirement blueprint to make sure that someone doesn't run out of money in retirement?
Well, Spike, people are going to laugh about 110.
Really? 110?
110.
Wow.
I mean, we do it to 110 for that person that says, I want to be buried with my last dollar in my pocket. That person, it's 110. Because listen, you know, we're going to be wrong, right? Which means what? We're going to have money left over. But if we do the normal, and I have people come in and they say, well, Tim, you know, in my family, people don't live past 80. Okay, well, what if you do? Like if you're out of money and you're still doing just fine, and I mean, we don't even know what medical breakthroughs are going to happen in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We look at all that's happened to this point, we see the longevity growth that has continued to increase significantly. How do we just say, oh yeah, you know, 80 is good or 85 is good?
Well, I completely agree. The way the technology is changing, the way that AI technology is helping us at work, things that used to take me hours, I can actually do in minutes right now. The medical care is getting better and better. They're looking into things like Alzheimer's. They're looking into actual vaccines on certain types of cancers.
Yes.
In a positive way, we could be living longer. 110. That cracks me up. Now, does he ever say, okay, Tim, I get the 110 plan, but how about 100? Right? Can we do, you know, can we do a comparison on that and look to see what those income flows would look like?
Well, it's, you know, we like to be conservative, right? And so I know if it goes out to 110, they're never going to run out of money.
Yeah.
And that feels really good to people. The other part of that is on the spending is somebody who is used to spending more.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. The don't spend money that you don't have.
You don't have.
A great sketch.
Is because, you know, what happens is, you know, when we're working, we have kind of this limitless flow of income. Every month, new paycheck comes in.
I don't know about for me about limitless, but I got a flow of income.
So that money's coming in every month, and we kind of get in that daily, monthly spend rate that we feel comfortable in.
Yeah, it's like, I can stop off and get a sandwich. I'm working hard. I can go ahead and spend this because it's going to shorten the amount of time. Honey, let's just go to dinner tonight because I don't feel like cooking. And yeah, it's kind of our regular spending because you know you've got that income flow.
And even with trips, sometimes you'll say, all right, I can spend, I may have to put the trip on a credit card, but I know I'm getting a bonus at this point and I can pay that off. And when we retire, we don't have that. And so we're used to doing things a certain way, and now all of a sudden we feel like we maybe have to make an adjustment. And for the most part, most of the clients that come in have got that figured out, but some don't. And it's an easy way to get yourself into trouble where you dig yourself a hole that becomes more and more difficult to get out. And if you think about it, Spike, if we start having to take more and more income to pay off debt, that's less income to live on.
Right, and there's a huge double-edged sword, and it's also why you talk about tax planning and tax planning for the future, that if we're starting to take more from those tax-deferred accounts, you say, I need more income. Well, guess what? You're paying more taxes that you deferred for 10, 20, or 30 years. So it's actually going down even faster and faster.
Well, and it factors into the planning itself, right? Because we've talked about, tax planning, we've talked about inflation and how they impact retirement, and you have to put that into the equation when we're putting together a plan.
Here, Tim, that we also know you and I have grown up the same way. All kinds of commercials, and it's always more and more and more. We're always, cars are so incredibly expensive right now. We know what happened to the housing market, but even just going to the grocery store. When you talk about defining enough, again, I don't want to go and have folks thinking about being limited in retirement. I want them to be able to have a spending plan, but can you talk about how you go through that conversation of defining enough, the big, bright, shiny object, how do we spend? Because now every single day in retirement, it's Saturday, right? We got to fill it with stuff to do.
We do, and it's difficult. We live in the greatest country in the world, and unfortunately, our country has adopted this thought process that I need more. I need the latest iPhone and the newest vehicle, and it's a constant world of upgrade. And this isn't just for retirement, but also saving for retirement. When you're looking at getting that next thing, and you think about if I didn't get that next thing, I could maybe save a little bit more, which maybe gets me to retirement a little bit quicker or makes my retirement a little bit better. You really need to kind of have that filter, and it's difficult when you look at social media and your neighbors, and there's this constant getting a new thing. And I look at our street, and a lot of people have pools, and we're like, well, maybe we should have a pool, right? It's like, do we need a pool? How many years are we going to live there, and how much does it cost? And those are the types of things that really
I think about an entire block of a neighborhood, and how many people there have 65-inch screen TVs, which I'm glad, because you're watching us, hopefully, on those screens.
Exactly.
But we all have and how many of us have, the stainless steel refrigerators and the marble countertops, and gosh, it's all up and down and of course you want to design the retirement that you want to, but helping is not what's most important. Is it the travel? Is it being able to bring the kids or the grandkids to you? Is it you being able to see the world? Is it being able to outfit your home the way you want to so you can stay there as you grow in age? The defining enough isn't limiting, it's defining what your goals are, what you really, really want.
Well, what you really, really want, 30 years of sitting with people that are retired, it's about happiness and joy.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to, not your stuff. And the stuff doesn't add to the happiness and joy. Now, I'm not saying that we don't need a roof over our head and a car that works.
Yeah.
But more doesn't typically make people happy.
Right.